Triangle strategy starts slowly. Pressing new game leads to a series of unappealing events. You're introduced to your character, Serenoa Wolford, and his extremely boring retainers and fiancé. You're given a bunch of narration about the recent history of a fantasy land whose most interesting characteristic is that there isn't much naturally occurring salt. There's cutscene after cutscene, introducing character after character with almost no context. It's awkward and frustrating with very little other than the marvelous 3D pixel art to keep it motivating. But despite an unappealing start, over the course of its 40+ hours, that slowness becomes a virtue, growing into one of the most effective and entertaining examples of the tactical RPG form.
Fire at will! A reward to whoever fells Prince Roland! There's more of them!
Don't worry, this isn't one of those it gets amazing after the first 24 terrible hour kinds of JRPGs. Almost every part of that frustrating start fades away, some problems almost immediately. The mundanity of the setting turns into a tense, extremely human political drama. The overwhelming number of characters provides fertile ground for intrigue, as seemingly major characters can be dispatched once the story gets violent, while minor characters step up. It slowly reveals a decision system where expressing beliefs, gathering information, and understanding character relationships all become important. Combat never becomes overly complex, yet somehow always feels perfectly tuned. And the main character just always makes Jon Snow look exciting by comparison. Sorry about that.
Such is the way of House Wolford.
The grounded human story of wars over resources and ambition may not sound exciting, but in a genre that's usually filled with mad mages or ancient gods threatening to destroy their respective worlds, it's refreshing to play a game focused on human political machinations in a land where magic exists, but not everything revolves around it. There are complex, three-dimensional characters who turn brutal and violent, or try to find redemption. It would be easy, but not unfair, to compare Triangle Strategy's story to Game of Thrones in many ways. On the other hand, the four main characters of Triangle Strategy suffer because they are all too similarly boring. The young Lord Serenoa, his betrothed Frederica, his advisor Benedict, and his best friend Prince Roland, and most other party members, are all kind, responsible, and excruciatingly, painfully polite at all times.
I understand. This requires careful consideration.
In a genre filled with flamboyant and memorable characters in games like Fire Emblem, Final Fantasy, or Persona, it's almost shocking to have a set of main characters be so aggressively dull.
And yet, here I am.
Fetch the scales, Benedict. We shall decide our path together.
That said, some personality and differences in character motivation come out in the Scales of Conviction system. Whenever House Wolford faces a major choice, the 7 main party members all discuss and vote on it. You can influence them through dialogue options and by gathering information, but the results are binding and can go against your wishes, so the stakes are high. In one campaign, I had generally focused on being kind and honest, which led to difficulties when I wanted to make a choice of whether to play along with a corrupt offer, while my retainers all voted to be honest and expose the corruption immediately. As time goes on, these choices take on more and more importance to both the future of the characters and the world.
It is time to cast our votes.
The voting and conviction systems end up being very clever ways to manifest your choices. All the little dialogue decisions you make end up combining to both subtly lead Serenoa down particular paths and unlock powerful side characters and flashbacks for them. On the downside, the conviction system is masked for the entire first playthrough, which did lead to some confusion over whether I was supposed to know what was happening or not. The quiet confidence of Triangle Strategy is most apparent in the combat system, which initially felt like something from a perfectly generic tactical role-playing game, but as the campaign went on, it increasingly impressed me with some of the best level design and difficulty tuning I've ever seen in a tactics game. The combat form is similar to Final Fantasy Tactics or Fire Emblem. You have a party of 8 to 12 characters that you move in turn around a tile-based map. Each character has different skills and stats that reflect their personalities. Benedict is a supporting class who can use skills that make your character stronger, tougher, or faster, but does little damage on his own. Roland is a fast-moving cavalryman who can do a lot of damage, but doesn't last long if he gets isolated.
You don't stand a chance!
There are small tactical considerations like terrain advantages and damage type vulnerabilities, but these are minor features and don't add up to, for example, a combo system like that in Disgaea. And the progression system doesn't allow for creating superpowered characters like those in Final Fantasy Tactics. Nor is there anything like Fire Emblem's friendship system to encourage combat choices beyond simply do the most damage. In other words, there's no hook. Instead, Triangle Strategy has simple, effective progression. Characters get slightly but noticeably stronger in ways that allow some temporary advantages, but then tougher enemies also pick up their own strengths. And while you can't completely reshape your characters, there are enough progression choices via items and weapon upgrades that can tweak them in important ways, like improving their magic resistance or making certain spells easier to cast. But every time I thought I found a major advantage, like picking up the powerful archer Archibald, I watched as the enemy forces got strong enough that what I had previously thought was being overpowered became simply another useful strategy.
I've got you marked.
The tactics genre is one where balancing difficulty is essential, and that's proven demonstrably tough to do. So it's extremely high praise when I say that Triangle Strategy, on the default normal setting, provided me with exactly the level of difficulty I wanted at almost every turn. When I got stuck on those harder fights, there were interesting and worthwhile optional battles I could engage in to level up a bit. Or else I could just experiment with changing my character's formation and roster. Those are the exact sorts of tactical decisions that I hope to make in games like this. Triangle Strategy also rises to the occasion whenever a major plot battle occurs, both in combat design and also aesthetically. The music, which is so important in this genre, is generally perfectly fine, but in some of the big battle themes it goes above and beyond. There's also some unique character dialogue that happens during these fights, which is especially useful because the villains tend to be the ones who carry the campaign in terms of personality.
We do not take kindly to thievery here in Wolfort. You will pay for your crimes.
It may not put its best foot forward immediately, but once Triangle Strategy gets going, it's shockingly successful at what it does try to do. It fulfills the promises of a story based on real-world ideas like resource competition and the ambitions of nobles, and those human stories manage to overcome even a massive wet blanket of a main character. It allows for meaningful choices, while also including a voting system for party members that can override your desires, based on a groundwork you laid yourself, in fascinating ways. And underlying all of that is its combat, which is simple, well-designed, and appropriately challenging in all the right ways. Triangle Strategy may be quiet in its greatness, but that's still great. For more, check out our reviews of Pokemon Legends Arceus and Ruined King, and for everything else, stick with IGN.
I shan't hold back.
Your defenses crumble.